The story of a virus and how it got political, where health and politics meet. Around 2020, a strange virus began spreading throughout the world. While the majority, 99.6%, recover from natural methods or other medicines, some of the vulnerable, the 0.4%, often with other terminal conditions, died even sooner or suddenly, often due to the complications of their previous disease, perhaps accelerated by this virus. 1 year later, in 2021, the government comes up with a vaccine to help people protect themselves from the virus. But they stop checking to see if it's working. Some people have mild reactions to the vaccine, maybe even resembling what it would be like to contract the actual virus to some degree. A few people have extreme reactions to it. Some die. Others who have not taken the vaccine become wary of the potential side effects and allergens, which the Central Health Agency recommends to check to make sure your body would be okay with. So people look into alternative therapies and treatments like the ones taken by many in the previous year, like this woman with a thrombotic or blood clot issue who relies on natural remedies she grew up with since the vaccine would be life-threatening for her. Or this woman who ramped up her vitamin D intake and used a room humidifier and cough suppressants to hydrate her dry cough. She was able to free herself of COVID and return to work within a week's time. Or this 89-year-old woman who was treated with vitamin D, C, and zinc and survived. Or this person who contracted COVID, was largely asymptomatic, but has been fortifying his body with vitamin D for years, and vitamin C and zinc since the beginning of the pandemic. Or this person and his parents who treated themselves with 4 cups of green tea a day and vitamins and were better within a few days. You see, throughout 2020, people and their health professionals figured out many different effective ways to treat the virus. But then, for some reason, the government begins to censor these other alternative therapies, which violates people's constitutional rights to free speech. The government explains that they're doing it because it is misinformation, but much of it is actually real information. The government then attempts to mandate people to take the vaccine only and refuses to hear the alternative therapies that many have taken. People lose their jobs and rights to their own bodies. Meanwhile, people who watch the media, "Dummies, you don't deserve a hospital bed," start to call these people names and say they shouldn't have access to medical care if they don't do what the government asks them to do. Now, of the 2 major forms of governing or establishing order in a society, which one is this society becoming? Is it a democracy in which the leaders check in with the people to see what works and doesn't work for the majority? Or is it a dictator that decides what they want to do for the people without necessarily checking in with the people? But wait, I thought the United States was a democracy. Well, you see, a dictatorship doesn't always have to be negative. Take, for example, a good king. Nobody voted for him to be there, but if he rules fairly, the people could really love him. And a democracy isn't always positive. Take also, for example, a president who was voted in by the majority. But the majority is also racist and ignorant to the experiences of the minority. This has been the case of an overwhelming portion of United States history, where African Americans, the minority, had 0 human rights and were ruled by slave-holding presidents and slavery apologists for a very long time, to even through the civil rights era and even now of still having to fight for basic human rights where you have to say your life matters. How long have African Americans been oppressed in this democracy? For almost 90% of U.S. history. So does democracy mean freedom? Well, remember, democracy means majority rule. Being a minority in majority-run politics can get rough, as we've seen in slavery. You see, if a democracy is held by the ignorant, aka those who are not knowledgeable or empathetic to others' experiences, it could hold severe consequences for the minority. It could become a leviathan, a powerfully destructive, multi-limbed beast. In fact, European political theorist Thomas Hobbes encouraged this, which is a little weird. You see, Hobbes compared a well-functioning government to this demon dragon, and that people should hand their rights over to it to protect themselves from the real threat, which is themselves, in the form of civil war. Or, in other words, your ignorance and blind faith feed the demonic dragon. Media can play a role in creating this Leviathan too, by pushing certain opinions over facts, by manipulating facts, and by claiming to have the solitary hold of all facts. This leads to censorship, or removing information that goes against their opinions or agenda. In the United States, which is classically held as a capitalist country, media companies fund many politicians. So oftentimes and increasingly, they work hand in hand. So why is the government pushing only one method of addressing this virus when there are many methods that address this virus? Particularly when the Central Health Agency itself is acknowledging that the vaccine's effectiveness is purportedly waning. In order to understand this, we have to understand what politics is supposed to be and what it actually has been in the United States.